Welcome everybody to our webinar, our live webinar. And we want to introduce some topic from the application management on the edge. And therefore, my name is Ricardo Dunkel. I'm the Technical Director of the Open Industry Alliance, and I'm gonna introduce you and lead you through the event today. At first, for your impression that you get an agenda and see the points we are targeting today. So we start with an overview with a high-level introduction, explaining what the Alliance is doing, what the App Store topic is doing in the Alliance member area, and then we go step by step through our other members, Hilscher and WIBU, who will explain a specialized approach, a dedicated approach we want to demonstrate you today. And don't lose some daylight, so we start and shortly explain the Open Industry Alliance. Very shortly, you find every detail in the brochure on our website, so if you need more information, please go there, download, and you will find some more fancy slides explaining what we are doing. Sum it up in a few words. We are here to cover the topic Industry 4.0, of course. We want to make the life easier, especially the technical side of this, the combination by the products and the service of our members. And that may help you to locate us in an easier way. We are called a self-implementation alliance, meaning when you ask what are you doing, where are you located, we are after the direction setter and standard bodies and try to close the gap to make the customer happy, especially the end customer of our members. So between the standard bodies who create the valuable standard information and the customer, there is a gap, and that's what we want to go to fill with our different approaches. And now we go slightly over to the topic of today. If you may ask how we do this, so we are nearly about 100 members. We are growing up also to full-time employees of our alliance. And the more important part is that we got 14 working groups and almost 300 volunteers, meaning people of our members of the companies itself who are working on the different topics we are targeting together. Here you get a slight impression how versatile our member setup is. So we get everything from every area, and the marked one, the red one, are the presenters today. So our founding member Hilscher, who's dedicated to the netFIELD development, meaning edge devices, chip, and also software components for the shop floor. And WIBU, of course, for the IP protection and validation of industrial applications. And that's what we want to show you today. And now you may ask, okay, how does it fit in an app store? And what does the Alliance do in this area? And therefore, I want to introduce you our working group setup. So we divide it in the industry section and technology section. And therefore, we bring the needs from the industry side, from the different domains, and identify the market itself and the use cases. And then we're going to reflect it on the technical side, what is required to do this, what we need to fulfill and secure the use case itself, so it can be deployed, applied in a factory or in a warehouse or whatever. And today we are choosing the application management to explain our current approach and also our current state in the application management. And of course, you may think, okay, this is not a topic by its own, and you are absolutely right. So I marked also the industrial cybersecurity part and the remote device management part to explain that working groups are not a silo itself, not a single pillar. The pillars are cross-connected to each other to create the most value of it. And now, let's start with an overview of today's situation. So if you look at the market and also at the shop floor and the products you find there, then you see, okay, there's a provider, many providers for applications, of course. Then you got several app store providers and different approaches to deploy, to roll out, to deliver the artifacts to the shop floor, to the edge management system, or whatever you need. But to be honest, it's more complicated. So almost every bigger company got its own shop for applications. They are providing different solutions. And in the end, what we want to reach together is the end customer want to use the applications in a very simple way. And if you think about the different application providers who are forced to provide their application in different kinds for different stores. There's a big effort, and of course the complexity for the end customer is growing, because he is asking, okay, where should I buy? What should I buy? What does it mean? And mostly when you look at the situation around, you find that you are very strong coupled to an application store, to a store provider, and it's not easy to switch between them. And this is also a big challenge for the end customer, because if you think of smaller, medium enterprise companies, they don't have the knowledge and also not the people and the skill sets to be able to handle different techniques, and also have the challenge with different stores and environments. So you are strongly coupled to one ecosystem. And that's what we want to solve with our common approach, and maybe change direction a little bit to say, okay, it shouldn't matter where you buy the application, or for an app provider, it shouldn't matter if you provide your application in one or another shop. In the end, we all want to make the customer happy, and this requires a more simplified approach. And now we have a little overview, a slide, a sneak preview how we're doing this in our working group application management. So there we are talking about a shell concept. Shell concept is very simple explained. If you think of a life cycle of an application, like deploy, like update, and so on, you can think, okay, there's an app store which is responsible for providing the application. And of course, there's a delivery when you go to the edge management system and the deployment for the application who a customer bought. Then you can simply divide it into 3 parts. This is just a base where we say, okay, let's distinguish between different challenges we have to face in the areas. On the application, we have to define a technical frame. What does it mean? On which system you run, or whatever. Where a shop is more responsible of the procurement, of the invoicing, and also the legal aspects. Am I allowed to buy or to deliver different applications to this area, to countries, or whatever? And of course, we also got a very versatile shop floor environment, brownfield approach, where you see that there are different techniques, protocols, and so on are required to be able delivering an application to its endpoint. And if you think now, okay, that's not all, you're absolutely right. There are many, many other aspects we have to take care about. And I'm sure you find more aspects that I just display on the screen. But this might give us an impression, okay, this is a complex topic. And this is where we're going today to say, okay, we choose different approaches from our founder, Hilscher, with an OI4 community store, explaining how we handle the store environment and also the different applications we want to provide and enrich in the near future. And we have our new member, WIBU, just joined this year to show, okay, how you can protect and validate the application, that you can be sure you bought it once and it's used once. Yes, and so this is the point where I hand over to Niels, that he can explain you more about the Hilscher world.
Yeah, thank you very much, Ricardo, and hello everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Niels Trapp, working at Hilscher as Chief Marketing Officer, and in this part of our webinar, we like to take a view more from the end user and why app stores are seen to be one core element of industrial digitization. So if we take a view on the expectations and the challenges that a production industry has in the digitization age, then this is not so new or something. The ideas behind what companies plan to do or want to achieve is pretty constant. Improvement of production efficiency, increase transparency, visibility of machines and devices in the production line, an offering of improved services of machine builders towards the factories they supply to, or also launching new digital business models. So this is all something that is on the expectation side when looking at IoT as such. So where is actually IoT today in some ways? Is it really going forward? And basically here's some information about that, saying IoT is really gaining momentum on the factory floor. On the left-hand side, you can see, sorry for the German language, it says investments in the digital transformation of manufacturing, and giving a statistic saying there's $1 trillion euro investment in total, actually, out of which industrial manufacturing is approximately 30%, another 30% in the chemicals, means process industry in some ways. So basically the investment is huge and really says, yeah, this really gets to the bottom now. It really matters, and it's something that companies really invest to gain this advantage, like in the previous page. And also we can say here on the left-hand side, investments haven't stopped just because of COVID-19. Sorry again for the German, this is the Bitkom, saying that 18% of companies have significantly increased or slightly increased their investments. 42% state they increased the investments into Industry 4 in this particular case, which is basically IoT on that matter. So we can say that IoT gains momentum. And on the other hand, we also have some learnings already over the last years. And industrial IoT bridges actually two worlds. One is the IT world, where we talk about clouds and where we talk about infrastructures in IT systems, backbones, all these kind of things. On the other hand, we have our OT, the shop floor level, where we basically have to integrate both worlds into one. So one acknowledgement is to say, yeah, OT knowledge is a key success factor actually for IoT integration. You need to understand what your production line is basically doing in order not to harm your running systems. On the other hand, the whole system altogether is inherently hybrid, which means there's an IT and an OT that really needs to interact in a certain way, specifically talking about edge computing and cloud computing. And it's complex, so it requires a good strategy when you start, and also it needs managed IoT infrastructure and a reliable ecosystem of partners that really contribute to the success. And one thing which will be covered later on by Rüdiger is also the topic of cybersecurity, in specific when we talk about apps later on. But in general, this is of course a topic when you talk about where's my data, who has access, who's allowed to do things, how's the vulnerability increase when I all of a sudden bring up IoT structures into my production line. The beauty of all that, we are looking at a vertical integration, which basically means it's not so hierarchical anymore. We have a direct access into the shop floor here through edge computing, edge devices, which are put into the brownfield or come with new installations in the greenfield. And the vertical integration enables actually then condition monitoring or remote services or predictive something, predictive maintenance, predictive quality, these kind of topics you can read here. That is actually some of the things that that are coming alive now actually in the shop floor. And it needs actually a management of all that edge devices, and there are some key capabilities that you require in order to succeed. So you need to centrally manage all your edge devices on the one hand side, not only provisioning but also managing device fleets, to be able to monitor device health and status, configure and update this remotely, or access the devices and field devices remotely. So that is something that really needs a centrally managed infrastructure. The basis of all that actually is a secure OS on the edge devices. So it's a Linux-based tailored in OS for specifically IoT usage. It basically ensures software is up to date, and we mitigate vulnerabilities so you're not accessible from people who are not allowed to. And also you can run IoT apps as Docker containers on the OS to expand your feature set of the individual edge device. Then you also want to manage your distributed IoT applications. So whatever software components you put to those edge devices, you would like to be able to manage that centrally. You want to have repositories and really understand which apps are on which of the edge devices. And the basis of all that is a governance on the IoT data flows. So basically data flows that are based on standards. Ricardo has just shown to us that from an OI4 perspective, we are not standardizing we are giving guidance and basically enable people using the right things. Here, MQTT, OPC-UA, and some other recommendations from the OI4. So what is Hilscher doing on this one? We basically have here a little model from our netFIELD edge management system. So at the bottom layer, you see all those field devices. It's pretty rough representative of a machine or something. And somewhere there's an access point as an OT connector into an edge device, little picture here. And there you have your Linux core, there's the device management client, there's data connectors to different architectures on top, and there's the container runtime for IoT edge applications. So here's actually the zone where we put different apps into a device to add features and capabilities. And all that is actually managed from something we call netFIELD Cloud. So that is actually a complete edge device management system and container management system. So both is in this box here. We can manage fleet jobs. We can do monitoring. We can have dashboards in different. We have app registry in here, data broker. So there's all that you need in order to manage all the edge devices in your facility. And there's a connection to a customer cloud, a private cloud, a virtual private cloud based on the usual suspects that you would see there as cloud providers. Now, we see actually IoT apps as a qualified adjustment to current automation tasks. So you basically pick and choose what is relevant and important. But there's also some challenges around the corner. So our app economy is well established in the IT industry based on the risk management and risk awareness coming from there, and also the cycles that people look at. But in the OT world, we look into some additional or more extended challenges in some way. So reliability topics, of course, machine uptimes, production throughput and efficiency is a matter, compatibility of technology components, cyber security protection, which we will look at in a minute. So basically, industrial apps that we put into a production facility need to support all those concerns together in order to be reliable and available. And we see App Stores as one core element, therefore, for industrial digitization in terms of saying future edge installations really benefit from access to a wide knowledge and expertise. So that is really the beauty of a community there. At the same time, and this is something Ricardo mentioned already in the beginning, there's compatibility. So we make sure in the application management that there's a certain frame under which apps will be made available. So we share a certain format based on the OI4 technology frame that Ricardo mentioned. There's reliability in here in terms of a standardized deployment process behind, so that apps can seamlessly fit to edge architectures. And also, again, we are a large community in the OI4. There's a ton of expertise, actually, with different backgrounds and different service offerings. And all that can be made available in one place. So you don't need to search, but you can reliably pick and choose out of such a pool of competence for your edge devices. There's also clear roles and responsibilities for the purchase process, so nothing to worry about in terms of how the commercial the commercial matters actually come along. And security by design is something that we will talk about in a minute in the next session, which is also something that is inherent to the system. But before we come to the security matters, I like to hand over to my colleague Uwe, who is basically giving you some good example as to how this is practically going forward and how an app is actually practically installed. Uwe, over to you.
Yes, hello. Thank you very much, Niels. Yeah, my name is Uwe Schnepp. I'm working for Hilscher, and there I'm responsible for the business development of IoT platforms, which is the device and application management platform netFIELD.io, which I'll show you in a second, and app stores, which are based on standard shop technologies to provide a new and easy to handle solution to deploy apps to the shop floor for IR4 or companies who are interested to use this type of management for their customers. What I will show you in a second is actually the interaction between 3 levels, which is the OI4 community app store, which is actually a marketplace, very similar to Amazon, where people offer their apps and you directly purchase apps from there. There is a real app store marketplace system installed by us and handled, and it's open to all members of the OI4 Alliance to provide their services free of charge or against payment to their end users. And of course, you need an interface level or not directly to communicate with the shop floor. That's what we call an open operator cloud, which communicates with the App Store to access the apps and receive the apps, and of course also the licenses to make use of the apps, because once the apps are downloaded to the Edge floor and to the Edge gateway, they can be copied and used several times, which is certainly not the business case for app providers. So we have to talk about app security and protection of business case. And the Open Operator Cloud is designed to handle all this. And this is what I'm going to show you in a short video, which we have recorded, a live recording. If you're interested, you can see the live demo in 2 weeks' time at the Hanover Fair, where we present this at the WIBU booth. And so let's start. So this is netFIELD.io, our cloud platform, where you can check yourself, get a free test account, and you see all what is necessary, to make this happen. Consisting of specific OS components on the Edge device, which could be enhanced to other hardware vendors, and the system itself, you log on, and there are different workspaces, and in each workspace you could have different roles and rights. And what Niels has shown before you, the functionality of the netFIELD Cloud consists of a great variety of tools to handle your devices and applications. Here you see one Edge gateway we have prepared. It's online. It doesn't have to be online all the time, just for security updates and, for example, container deployments. Here is our repository of available apps. And as you can see here, we have selected a Profinet sniffer application. We already have purchased this a time. Going directly to the Edge device via the platform, you can see that this application is not running yet. It hasn't been deployed. Therefore, we go to the App Store, or for appstore.com, where we log in and to see where can I find this application I'm interested in. As I said, this is a marketplace where different vendors can provide their apps, have their pricing, their individual business model, subscription, one-time fee, whatsoever. And here we select the app we are interested in. And this is a real e-commerce system with all the workflow you are familiar with when you purchase something online. It's a scalable platform from an e-commerce agency, which provided this to us. And here you go through the ordinary ordering process. Important is, in order to connect with your platform, the deployment platform, you need the API key, which has been introduced here, just to make sure that it's going directly to the deployment platform. A final check on the purchase, and then the purchase is triggered and downloaded to the Open Operator Cloud, where the software and the license can be handled towards the shop floor systems. Here we see now that the available containers and the number of licenses is upgraded to 9, and we are going to make use of one of the 9 purchased licenses to deploy on one of the Edge gateways. So there's a simple deployment process. Now, usually the edge device would receive the information where to download the app, which is an image. We have downloaded this in the past, so it's slightly faster. Usually such an image has about 200, 300, 400 megabytes, so it might take some time. And now, as you can see, the app has been started on the edge device. We go back, we go to the user front end of the edge device, and here you can see now the app is up and running, and it has its own web interface, which you can see at the left-hand side. And here you see what the license status is. The protection mechanism of this app is that it's working, but you can't see the values unless you have provided the license server. That's the only manual thing we have to do at the moment, because we have to integrate the WIBU license server as a container itself, which will be running on the edge device. Currently, we have to provide this in terms of an IP address, and you can see the license is valid and the app is doing what it's supposed to do. Going back, looking at the available containers and deployments, we have now, it's again 8 licenses still available. And this is the time where I would like to hand over to my colleague, Rüdiger Kügler, from our partner WIBU-SYSTEMS, to explain to you how the software protection and the licensing handling on the edge device can be handled. That's it. Thank you very much.
If you have seen Uwe's presentation in detail, you would have seen that after the creation of the order, there was an activation code. We call this a ticket. And this was used automatically in the background to activate the license. And now let's take a look of how to create such a ticket, how to use such a ticket, and what we need to do to implement licensing and protection in such an app. And with this, I'd like to welcome you to my part of the presentation and have a view about the technology behind the licensing and protection integrated in the demo of Uwe. Let's start with a few words about licensing basics. And when we speak of licensing, then we have the idea of you need to integrate it once into your software and your processes, and then you can deliver many licenses to multiple customers. And when we speak of the integration, we have to take a look at two different sides. The first side, or the first part, is the integration into your software. And there are typically multiple ways to do this. And speaking more in general about different providers, there are ways where you get an API, and then you can use an API in your software, checking is the license there, yes or no, which would result into something like a jump 0, jump not 0, and then the software will work if the license is there and will not work if the license is not there. Unfortunately, integrating such an API is easy to do, but also easy to remove, and that's why some obfuscation or encryption tools can be used, should be used in addition to such licensing APIs. And with our protection suite, we created such a tool which combines licensing and protection in a very secure way. And so we are using a key which is stored in the license itself. So when we create a license, we also create a key. And this key is used for the encryption and decryption of the software to make the combination between licensing and protection very strong, and to make it very hard for an attacker to remove the licensing from the software. We will see a short demonstration how to integrate this, and the focus will be on automatic build systems. So how to integrate this, especially in an automatic build system, so that you can reproduce this, or that you can do this in your daily compilation and automatic systems. On the other hand, the second hand, we also need to integrate licensing somehow into the processes. On the left-hand side, we have a ERP system, could be SAP or CRM system like Salesforce, or in this case with the OI4 community store, an e-commerce platform. And in the e-commerce platforms triggers the creation of a license, and our product here is License Central. And this creates this ticket, this activation code. And later on, this is what we have seen in the demonstration of Uwe, this activation code is used to create a license, to put a license on the edge device, or in this case, to put it on a license server. And this can be integrated either in your application or can be done via a license portal. And the vision is to integrate this process also in the OI4 community store in a very easy way. And after doing the two integration steps, we can deliver multiple licenses and multiple software instances to our customers. And let's take a look at this in a more generic view. We deliver the same software to every customer. Integrate once, deliver many. And then we can create individual licenses, and there are a lot of strategies which can be used. One option is to create a basic license and some additional module, and maybe additional modules for a few days, like maybe a test license. And so this could be a condition monitoring license with a trial version of a predictive maintenance licenses in our case. Very new and fancy stuff is subscription licenses. So your user does not buy the perpetual license and can use it for 20 years, 30 years, something like this. Your user gets a subscription and pays it either once per month, once per quarter, or once per year. And so you have permanent revenue with your software. A use case which is typically used more on a computer or PC-based software is floating network licenses that you purchase 7 users, and you can 7 of let's say 20 users can use this concurrently. So if all 7 users are using it, then the 8th user will get a message, sorry, all licenses are currently in use. But if one stops using, then the next one, which is now the 7th one, can use it. And last but not least, it's also possible to create pay-per-use licenses. In the last year, pay-per-use became even more prominent, and so more of our customers were asking for pay-per-use license. But pay-per-use is a topic that is already 20 years old. So I joined WIBU-SYSTEMS 20 years ago, and I remember at this time we had already a use case or a case story with Agfa, and Agfa protected their copy machines, in this case using our technology, our dongles, and each time when a copy was made, the counter was reduced, and so they had a pay-per copied page model. And just a couple of months ago, we released a pay-per-use project with Daimler Everbus, and they had the idea to print their spare parts in a 3D printer, but they want to earn money with the spare parts, and that's why we put a protection layer about a blueprint of the spare part, and every time when the spare part is printed, the pay-per-use counter is reduced by 1 to simply do the counting and payment for the 3D spare parts. In general, it's possible to offer hardware-based security. WIBU does this with the CodeMeter dongle, which means it's an external device, a USB device, SD card, micro SD card, which has a secure hardware element so that you can store license information and especially the keys for encryption, decryption in this hardware device. The second option is to store licenses bound to a computer, bound to an edge device, bound to an embedded device. We call this a CMX license, and then the license is encrypted, or the keys are encrypted, so that it can only be decrypted and used on one dedicated device. And last but not least is a license server in the cloud, so that users can use the license mobile. Usually the first use cases, dongles and license files are used on edge devices or are used on local machines, and the cloud container is either used for software running in the cloud or for personal software, for instance, for games where you play the game today at your computer at home and tomorrow with a friend in his house. Last but not least, there's also the option to have a floating network license server with this use case of the 7 concurrent licenses in the network, which can use a secure anchor with the dongle or the ACT license or with a cloud container. When we started the project together with OR4 and Hilscher, then there were a few challenges. On one hand, we have a lot of different apps, and usually software developers use a lot of different programming languages. Could be a Python app, could be a JavaScript app, Java, .NET C# is a classical C++ application. So on this hand, we had a lot of applications created in a different way. And on the other hand, it should be open to multiple devices running on multiple operating systems. One of them is the netFIELD OS, but of course it should also run on an Alpine Linux container. It should run in some yocto Linux projects. And with the OI4 community store, the idea is to deliver all these apps to all these devices. And for this, the use technology is Docker, so that everything is put into a Docker container to offer the interoperability. Using Docker created some challenges, especially for licensing and protection. And so, as mentioned, the challenges are multiple application providers, multiple devices and users, unknown platform, Docker containers, and especially in Docker, where everything is virtualized, we need to get a secure anchor to bind the license securely to this edge device. And so the secure anchor is one of the most important things for a good protection and a good license. And last but not least, license distribution and creation should be on an automatic way. Yeah, let's take a look at the 3 different parts that we did in the integration. And the first thing is an easy integration. And so I just took an .NET assembly as a sample, and let's have this as a short live demo. Here, this is my it's a application running on a local PC, but of course, running on an edge device, it would have a different type of interface. It would have a graphical interface in the browser. Here, this is a application running directly on my operating system, but it's the same principle. And this is the unprotected device or the unprotected software. And there are a lot of different hacking tools available. Let's not call them hacking tools. Let's call them reverse engineering tools. And one of them is Telrik, just decompile, but of course there are multiple others like ELDASM, like Reflector and so on. And when I take a look at the unprotected application, then I see everything here in the application. I see there are 2 classes, FRM about, FRM main. And in FRM main, there are some strings, there are some member, here are some methods. One method is the mfile open click, and here we see it's creating a dialog, it's doing this and this, and so we can read the source code. And so in case of .NET, and same applies for JavaScript, for Java, and for Python, you can very easy extract the source code from the executable. And so if there would be something like a license check, you would find the license check here, and you would be able to remove the license check. So, and that's why we said we need to do it on a better way. And to integrate this into your automatic build system, this protection is done in a command line way. And the command line way means you define some options, how the application should be protected. This is the name of the application, the output folder, the license which should be used, which we see later on. Should there be some special security checks? And so you simply create this configuration file, and then you can integrate this into your daily builds. I already prepared a command line file, and so it's calling the .NET application, our .NET application, which then encrypts your .NET application. And what we see, this application includes 27 functions. 18 of them were protected. 9 of them were too small, so they don't include really protectable intellectual property. That's why we excluded them from the protection. And now, when we have the protected assembly, on one hand, I like to show you that you now no longer can reverse engineer it. So here is the protected assembly. And what we see is we see nothing. So we no longer see the code. We still see the names and the members. And this is One thing so that you still can use reflection or remoting. That's why we do this on purpose. There are some options also to obfuscate this. But the important thing is the code is now encrypted and you no longer have access to the code, or the hacker no longer has access to the code. And even with other tools like Reflector or IL-Dozen, you can no longer see the code. And of course, if you start the application, you will get a license not found error. So this is one part that we did in the project. So this offering of the automatic protection. In the slides, we just see the same thing. We see it taking an assembly, encrypting the assembly, and as mentioned, all the methods were encrypted automatically and put back into the protected assembly. And some security engine which adds some security checks. The AX engine is added to the protected assembly. And after the protection, you see nothing. The second challenge that we solved is the support of Docker environments. In Docker environments, you have one virtual machine, and in the virtual machine, you're running multiple protected applications. Could be the same, could be different applications. And for this, we created a container which includes a license server. We put the license on a named volume so that it is stored permanently. And so we bind the license to the device that it can only be decrypted and used inside of this virtual machine. And we have this access to the encrypted key stored on the named volume. So even that if you restart the license server container, the license is still there. And via network connection, the license can be used from the multiple containers in the same device. And last but not least, I told you that if you have such an activation code, you can activate the license easily, something that we plan to integrate into the shop as one of the, let's say, basic stuff. And for this, let's go to our license portal. I have a local copy on my machine. I already entered the ticket, so this is the ticket that I got from my online store. I enter the ticket and I see the license is still available. And when I activate the license, now the fingerprint, I'm choosing the ACT license. Now the fingerprint of the device is created, is uploaded to the cloud. In the cloud, License Central creates the license file, encrypts it for this machine, delivers it down to the edge device. On the edge device, in this case, my computer, it is activated. Now it's bound and delivered to my device. And now, of course, I can start my protected software because now I have the license available on my computer. Yeah, and this was a short demonstration about what we did. Easy integration of the software encryption, easy integration of the activation process, and solving the challenges with the Docker environment. And with this, I'd like to hand over back to Ricardo for the summary.
Thank you very much, Rüdiger, for the very detailed and nice prepared presentation. And like we said in the beginning, we are now going to sum it a little bit up. I hope you can follow our train sort. We came from the high level perspective and then going to what we are going to cover and to target in the working group. And if you had this in mind, my suggestion is to think it of a kind of a big image and a puzzle you want to create an image with. Of course, there are many aspects we have to target, we have to talk about and unify to create more or maybe a higher level of interoperability. But don't be afraid of that. If you think of a puzzle going step by step, you don't solve the puzzle in a minute. You start with the corners, and that's the message we want to transport today. And with our founding member Hilscher, we got a very open approach for community store. So Hilscher is also operating this, and with WIBU, we got a special pieces of puzzle which is required to fulfill the requirements of the market. Yes, so we don't want to run a discussion and say, okay, the idea is very nice, but how do you handle this and that? How can I prevent IP is stolen or apps are stolen and I don't get the money as an app provider, and different issues like that. And with the presentation today, we want to show you, okay, there's a big image, a big puzzle to solve, but you don't have to wait. We already started to run, and this is where I go to our roadmap to keep you a little bit updated and a sneak preview to our application management working group. And so with the discussion of last year and the first results, we are now going to extend the different store environments, building up, extending the sandbox, where of course OI4 Community Store is one kind of shop environment we are based on, but we want to also include other store providers to enable them follow the journey. And some things are already settled, or at least in the early adoption phase, like the app manifest and stuff you know from the technical point of view. And the important message is we are going to extend and build up the sandbox environment, not only by the store environment itself, also by creating and use sample applications we already got based on the reference implementation on a different layer in the Open Industry Alliance, and thus leads us to a more detailed understanding and reflection with our existing members and the world outside to provide us a possibility to sharpen the interface definition, which is required to get the interoperability working between different ecosystems. And that lead us to some white paper and guidelines, which are mainly there for enable store providers, application providers, and delivery expert to get an understanding what is required to raise the interoperability and how can I rid of the specific ecosystem itself. Then let it grow. Yes, so we already got early adopters in there, shop providers, application providers, and people who are familiar with the deployment, with the rollout procedure itself. And this is why we came to the high-level roadmap. It's more my perspective to say, okay, we started with the transformation of the different ecosystem, enable the application and store providers step by step, and then I hopefully had next year the big effect that we are going to cover almost all of our members. Yeah, so we got big members also in there, and everybody providing their own environment for applications and store. And once we have done that, I'm looking forward to 25, where we get a unified interoperable base for the applications and the store environments. And that's the point where the application, the number of application can burst or explode. Yes, maybe explode is a little bit too optimistic, but it will continue with the progress in the market, because we always have in mind the end customer of our members must be happy. And if you think about smaller companies, this is very important to decouple the complexity of the technique by the usage of an application. And saying that, I want to thank you all for your participation and for your time. And of course, now we are going to provide different contact points. The one is directly at the Hannover Fair. You know, it's soon, 17th to 21st of April, and you find us on different booths. Of course, the WIBU booth itself, and we are also on other founding member booths. And feel free to get in contact to arrange a schedule before. We will provide also something like Meet the Experts for the application management, where we invite other participants, other companies of our alliance to be there present. And this is a perfect possibility to establish a contact, to talk about your concern, to talk about your products and your portfolio and how it may match to the work we done in the alliance. And of course, now we are going to answer your question directly. So if there's anything in your mind, feel free to speak up, and we are here and glad to help you and answer your question directly.
Okay, thank you, Ricardo. I've collected some of the questions that came through during your talk, so I would start addressing them with the help of all of you. Let's start with one that is extremely technical. Can I protect my JavaScript application?
I think this question comes to me, and yes, you can protect your JavaScript application. We offer the same technology that you have seen for .NET applications, also for JavaScript. For JavaScript applications running on an embedded device in some type of a Node application, so Node.js application. It's not possible to protect the application running inside a browser, but if you have a JavaScript application which is based on Node, like Node.js server, like Electron framework, then you can protect it with the same way like I showed you with the .NET application.
Thank you, Rudiger. Let's stay technical with another question that is for Hilscher. Is it necessary to use the Hilscher Edge Gateway, or is the store open to other standards? Yes, Uwe.
I may answer this. Basically, it's the vision of OI4 to create an open ecosystem. So Open Operator Cloud will communicate with different edge gateways according to, let's say, the predefined communication ways. And so it's not exclusive to Hilscher edge gateways. We are providing the showcases and work on the common standards and recommendation, but it's open, and also we mentioned netFIELD OS as our operating system. This is open to other hardware vendors, and the so-called Linux extension could even be used by other Linux edge gateways directly to link it to the Open Operator Cloud.
Thank you, Uwe. Then there are two questions that I actually would combine because they are close to one another, but they tackle two different aspects of the same story. On the one side, we have what are the technical prerequisites for having your app listed in the store? And the other one is, how does the app certification journey unfold? Anybody that wants to answer?
Yeah. Ricardo, do you want, or shall I? Yeah.
Yes, I think it's a good question where you can start with.
Okay, so basically, our common ground is the Docker technology, the containerization of applications, so it can be deployed independent of physical hardware. That's one point. And of course, the communication mechanisms between different apps used or defined by so-called manifest files, which also have to be used when uploading an app to the marketplace, to the app store, and then deploy it. So it's not only the referrer where the application image can be found, but also the manifest file, how to deploy it, and how to communicate with other apps, for example. That's one point. And what was the second part of it, please?
How does the app certification journey unfold?
Okay, yeah, that's certainly a difficult topic because app certification means that the let's say the operator of the marketplace, which is currently Hilscher, is we are not really responsible for the correct functioning of the app because it's provided by the app vendor. You know, there is a direct contract between the vendor and the app user. So basically, it's important that the functionality is guaranteed by the vendor through this contract between users. And apart from the common communication channels and interfaces, it might be very difficult, you know, to guarantee that the app is functioning correctly and has to be certified.
Okay, so next is more about business. Is it possible to create subscription models with CodeMeter?
A clear and simple answer, yes.
Okay, we keep it as that.
Also, the marketplace will provide a mechanism for recurring charges of subscription models.
We also have quite an odd question, I would say here. What about a demos?
Anytime.
I want to take this up because Adamos is or was also a member of the Open Industry Alliance, and they closed their business, so they have industrial marketplace as software as a service components. If anybody doesn't know them, it's a joint venture from different companies, when I say it like this, and they're closing their doors right now in the start or end of April. Yes, and Yes, this is maybe a good Adamos, yes. And this is also an explanation where we can think, okay, this is purely set for the people, especially if you know them. But on the other hand, it proved that nobody is able to do it alone. Yes, so the marketplace is not like an app store or an Google App Store or the iOS store from Apple. So we have to focus here. Yes, because the end customer have to use the applications to run their business. They are not interested in the store environment itself. They want to find the best app and want to use it on their edge, on their shop floor layer. And that's why we believe a cooperation is very important, and we have to strengthen the understanding and also the technical base for cooperation. Yes, and you need a long breath for this. Yes, so this is not anything you can run your business alone. This is what Adamos sadly proves. On the other hand, it provides the opportunity to strengthen the cooperation and say, okay, we got enough example on the market which are showing us it's not a one-man show or one company show. We have to work together on this very complex topic. And this is where we want to invite everybody of you to be part of the journey as an app provider, as a device provider, app and store provider. So you see there are many aspects, and we highly want to motivate you, use the opportunity on Hannover Fair or use our contacts. You find them on the slides afterwards anyway. And if there are any concerns or help you need, we will guide you through, and we are happy for any new contact.
One last question here, another short and sharp answer, I guess. What about the key length for encryption that we are using with CodeMeter?
We're using the standards which are recommended by BSI and NIST. So we are using AES with 256-bit encryption length to encrypt the application and to transfer the licenses from the cloud to the edge device or to the local machine. We are using ECC elliptic curve cryptography with 228 and in the future 256-bit key length. So we are using the recommended key lengths and algorithms by BSI and NIST.
Any closing statement from any of you?
Thank you for being our guest. Thank you for being here. Have a nice day.
Happy Easter.
Thank you very much.
Happy Easter.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
See you in Hannover.
Bye.
Thank you.
See you in Hannover. Yeah.